Hi, welcome back to my channel. It's dedicated towards creating narcissistic abuse awareness and more so from a biblical standpoint. And I'll also be discussing other general life issues. Narcissistic abuse is domestic violence, and I'm looking at the different ways it manifests itself. I've spoken about verbal abuse, emotional abuse. Today I'm going to be looking at psychological abuse, or in some circles, mental abuse. This is literally the core of abuse, because every kind of abuse affects the mind, and what affects the mind affects the body. Whatever I'm discussing, please find ways of seeking help. Talk to someone. We are having a high rate of poor mental health that is not being addressed. Many of us trivialize it. By the time we are seeing the results of it, as in either someone is suicidal, at the brink of suicide, or they've committed suicide. So, or they've had a mental breakdown. So I encourage everyone out there, please don't take your mental health for granted. Abuse is so heinous, it's horrible, it's demonic, it's not godly. Please get out of abusive situations. I'm going to talk about some of the different ways psychological abuse will manifest itself beside the verbal and emotional, because all that are wrapped in here. Manipulation. At the core of all abusers is deception, and the father of all liars is the devil. John tells us that. Let me give you a quick one. Years ago, there's this friend of mine who shared with me some very personal information about her life, and that time we're in school, and she happens unfortunately to have shared it with some other person. At that time, she felt like she could also trust this person. She didn't say much, but the little she said, this person goes and tells other people. So these other people, during their discussion, this person tells them, but I happen to know more about it. This one of the girls approaches me, and she's making some chit chat talk and all that. And then she brought it out this way. She purposefully gave a false narrative of what had happened. I got in to correct it. And in the process of doing so, I gave out some information. I really felt I'd betrayed my friend. I remember I went and I called her and spoke to her. I told her what had happened, and she was now shocked at how come the other person knew. I didn't about this other, her sharing initially with someone else. So she's like, but I only spoke to you and so and so. How did this other one who approached me know? So at that point she knew it was this other person she had shared it with. But what was it? How this girl played her card was that she came and purposefully gave me she strung the story, right? Then along the way she started acting like she wasn't certain about it. She was giving me some bits of truth and lies. So I wanted to correct the narrative at that point, like, no, it was ABCD. Much as it wasn't much, I felt I'd really, like, I believed I'd betrayed my friend, and I needed to let her know immediately, like, what had happened. And I thank God it wasn't something huge on her end, because it was like, cool, I'm glad. Did you say any other thing? No. And I'm grateful. I felt uncomfortable. I remember when I was talking to her, and it was like, shush up, because I knew her to have a running mouth. You know, that one who knows everyone's story. She knows each and everything about everyone, but doesn't know exactly. Number 2, gaslighting. Psychological abusers usually gaslight you. Gaslighting is simply denying something that someone has done. They deny you your reality. Someone called you something, someone told you something, someone gave you something, and when confronted about it, they deny they ever said it, gave it to you, or did anything. They deny ever interacting with you, and you are left baffled. Like, was I dreaming? Did I imagine it? How is it that it was so well played out in my mind that it happened, and yet the person denies it? You know, it leaves you confused. Silent treatment. Silent treatment, like I said, it's a form of punishment. These people here are just out to get you. They don't want to talk about, they are evading a subject that they know they did something wrong, but they don't want to talk about it. They act angry and rageful when you bring it up. They really go radio silent on you. And you're thinking, you know what? For the sake of peace, let me just let it be. Let me just drop it. As you're dropping it, you don't realize that your body is keeping score of it. If you do not have a proper or safe environment to air it out, you let it go from the inside. It has been discussed. No hard feelings anymore. That's it. The fourth one is smear campaigning you. I don't see the visible markings of these abusers. These are heinous, they're insidious, they are slow, they are difficult to detect. Talk of the green snake in the green grass. They appear not to be doing anything, but they are doing the most horrible acts to someone just in plain sight, like the devil. Most especially if they cannot control you, or if they have dealt a blow to their ego, their false image, that grandiose, that omnipotent and perfect image of theirs. You've tainted it by maybe saying they are wrong. You've corrected them in the midst of people. You will pay, by the way. Regardless of how they appear calm and collected, you are going to pay for what you have done. You should never have embarrassed them. What they decide to do is to go on a smear campaign. You've talked and ironed out issues. They go out and start talking ill about you. They spread gossip, they spread rumors, they start falsehoods in different circles. No one is off limits, by the way. Your partner can smear campaign you to the children, your own family of origin, your friends, your workmates, at church. These people here are demonic. They go for the kill. They don't damage you, they just go for the kill. They're out to destroy you. They leave you tainted. You become an emotional wreck. Especially when you hear of the stories that are being told and they are not true. And the worst part, they are coming from someone who should be protecting you. This is your partner. Your partner is on a smear campaign against you. Yet they come back smiling and acting like nothing has happened. You're looking at sleeping with the enemy. Smear campaigning is also another way of murdering someone. You murder people with your words. Murder is not just about getting a knife or a gun and then you shoot someone or you stab someone. Murder is beyond that. You can murder someone with your words. Those accusations, people have committed suicide, people have attempted suicide, people have lost opportunities, jobs, marriages, all because of a smear campaign. Someone started out a rumor which was false. By the time it's rectified, no one is bothered. Your good name has been tarnished. Building it again is going to take you a while. Trust has been broken. Smear campaign is a death of its own. Ephesians 4:29 tells us, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful. Toxic people do not know this, because at their being is deception. There's nothing helpful that comes out of deception except death. Triangulation, similar to the smear campaign, but it's another way of controlling you using the third party, isolating, of keeping you under their control. Because if you lash out at them, the people outside are going to confirm the craziness he has been talking about. If you keep quiet, you've started the war within. So at the end of the day, you're left in a catch-22 really. You can't be you because you don't know who is for you and who is against you. The people you trusted are believing the lies. You get betrayed at all angles. The other one is blame shifting. I'm going to come still hard on the church. I'll keep giving that example. Church people have this issue of they blame it on the devil. They blame it on the spirit of Jezebel. Blame shifting waters down confession. Denies that's the gift of free will. Taking God's law or commandments into accountability and also the consequences to it. Blame shifting underscores everything God has given us as a gift. Genesis chapter 3 verses 11 to 13. When Adam shifted the blame, it was the woman you gave me. The woman, it was the serpent. Blame shifting, it's the language of the flesh. Taking responsibility is a godly attribute. It's a God thing. It's the work of the Spirit. Because you recognize you have done something wrong and you're apologizing for it. People who blame shift are immature. They have got a degree of immaturity. It's just like children. Watch any adult who is ever argumentative, who always shifts blame onto others, and watch children, if you have any. You can almost tell the age bracket based on the way they are arguing or blame shifting. It was Yalan who took the sugar. It was Yalan who took the milk. And then you see, particles of sugar on their cheek, and you're like, hey. And how did they do it? They're describing how they themselves did it, by they're saying it's Yalan. And you're like, you get a mirror. They look at the mirror and they're like, it was that one. What did you say? What did you you know? But now an adult confidently, even with the mirror before them, they are denying it. Blame shifting is an art of deception, and deception is from the devil. People who blame shift take pride in that they cannot do anything wrong. It's a spirit of pride, and we know that the spirit of pride is what brought down the angel, the once glorified angel. The spirit of pride rests in anyone who blame shifts. Jezebel doesn't do anything you decide not to do. You reject it, it will go away. You host it, it will stay there. Romans 3 tells us to take responsibility of our actions. Life and death are before you. If you're choosing, how can you start blame shifting? Every decision we make is a personal decision. And if you're going with the crowd, it means you are you're an indecisive man. You've already decided to be taken left, right, and center. So still you've made a decision. Indecision is still decision made. You always wonder why is that they can't take responsibility. The other one is criticism. Psychological abusers are always fault finding because they need to be in a dominant state so that you are beneath them. There's nothing good you're doing. There's nothing good enough you ever do. There's nothing you'll ever do to be in their good books. They are ever fault finding. They're the ones who are blame shifting still. So they keep you working hard. You're ever thinking, how do I please them? What more can I do? I have changed maybe the curtains. I have changed the chairs. Let me change this perfume. Let me change these clothes. Let me change my friends. You'll keep changing. You change yourself. Literally, you lose your identity in the process of trying to please these people, to fit into their bracket of how good a person you should be. It takes a mental toll on you. You become psychologically strained in everything because you're ever thinking of how well to please them, yet they are never taking an inch to make any changes on their end. Critics always condemn. There's a guy called Michael Pio. He said this one statement years ago. Critics kill. Just that. At that time I was so young and I'm thinking, but it's normal to criticize. I didn't understand what he meant, but he was right. Critics kill. Now I have grown up to realize he was talking about there is a group of people who at their core have got the spirit of criticizing. Talk of that fabric of criticism, that is them. You can't pull a fiber without seeing condemnation, criticism, fault finding, blame shifting. These are the people I'm talking about, and those were the people he was talking about. The Bible says reckless words pierce like a sword, but the wise brings healing. Be mindful of such people. Remember, your mental health is the greatest asset you have. The moment it goes kaput, you cannot do anything. Stay away from abusive situations. Abusers know what they are doing. Never be fooled into thinking and believing the watered down talk of they didn't know what they were doing, or they don't understand. These people know. Even where the brain is involved, that they may not have understood exactly what they were doing. That got disputed. When there's an audience, these people are good. They are calm, collected. I mean that the gentleman, that the lady, the moment the audience is not there, talk of the legion of demons manifests itself. So how is it that if they don't know what they are doing, why is it that when there's an audience, they are normal? When there's no audience, they are back to themselves. The mask comes off. When someone is psychologically abused, they become psychosomatic. So somatic, you're looking at the body. So you're seeing how the mind affects the body. Now, the body usually is functioning on the autonomous system. You're looking at the autonomous, you're now looking at the parasympathetic, sympathetic, and enteric. When you're constantly in an abusive situation, or even if you have left the abusive situation, that you have been in it for so long, the residual effects are going to be felt in the body. And this is where you're going to hear someone has got heart diseases. You're hearing cases of angina, arrhythmia. People are suffering from autoimmune diseases, nerve diseases. When you're undergoing abuse, the sympathetic nervous system is what is activated. And this is why we get the response system. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. They are 4 folds. When you're in a safe environment, safe and secure environment, a nurturing environment, the body operates under the parasympathetic nervous system, and this is rest and digestion. These two systems cannot be activated at the same time. It's either or, the tree of life or the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The response system on a day-to-day basis releases cortisol. Cortisol is what helps us each and every day to carry out what we are doing. However, when you are under abuse, copious amounts of it are released, and this release is now what tenses up any human being. The brain is fully activated and running, that there is constant danger. So you find that cortisol is constantly being released and it's going nowhere in the body. This excess cortisol and adrenaline having nowhere to go, it starts getting into the body system. You're looking at the cell, you're looking at the tissue, you're looking at the muscle, you're looking at the bones. This is the beginning of the dis-ease in the body, basically diseases in your body. So when you are in an abusive situation, repeated abuse, and anyone undergoing domestic violence or narcissistic abuse kickstarts that system. Over time, your pain threshold may be so high that you don't notice it, but your body has been activated to think that way. So cortisol is constantly being released. This is how long-term effects you find someone, they're having nerve disorders, they're having autoimmune disorders, they're having heart issues. Myelin is being eaten off. We don't understand why. You're having fog, you're losing your memory. All these are the residual effects of abuse. Church is telling people stay in that environment. God hates divorce. Stay with your partner. You have children. Fight for the marriage. The thing is that the idea of marriage has been glorified over the health of the people involved in the marriage. The church is literally pumping people into mental institutions. Church is doing the devil's bidding for him by encouraging people to stay in abusive situations, without realizing that the abusive situations are the ones causing all these tremendous illnesses that the people run to the church to have prayed upon them. And the spirit of rejection. Now looking at roles given by the narcissistic parent to the children. The spirit of rejection, you're looking at the scapegoated child or the black sheep of the family. The ignored child, the hidden child, the invisible child. What is it? Church needs to step up. All these defects are from such abuse. Our bodies were not built to be in stressful situations. They were built to be in rest and digestion. And this is also another thing where you'll notice that people who are under stressful situations, their digestive system is never good. You develop IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. You're like, I'm so nervous, I can't eat. Or you're eating excessively. What is it? It's not even being registered in the brain that you're full. It's just, there are no neural connections going on. The limbic system is not in tune with the prefrontal lobe. They are not talking, if I may. They are detached. A person who is undergoing abuse is living in survival mode. And this will also explain as to why you'll hear people saying that that child is stupid, that child is stupid. The thing is that a child who is living under abuse, their brain stays in the reptilian or the brain stem. They are operating in that area. They cannot function to the emotional level, and with the emotional level, they can't go to the prefrontal level where you're looking at judgment, decision making, things of that nature. Abuse keeps one stationed in this area of survival. The effects: one develops post-traumatic stress disorder. You have brain fog. You've developed anxiety, like what I was talking about. You're constantly hypervigilant. You're hypersensitive to sound, anything. You're just frightened. You're living in the sympathetic nervous system. Your body now has accustomed itself to that. Constantly having flashbacks of the different events. You're having nightmares. You're having intrusive thoughts. You're experiencing panic attacks. I mean, it's a host of it. Philippians 4 tells us, do not be anxious of anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God. Abuse is presenting itself as a source of anxiety. The church is instead telling you stay in that abusive situation. The Bible is telling us something different. Be not anxious. How can't you not be anxious? You're in an abusive situation. Stay away from it. Get yourself out of it. Another thing you're going to find, you've developed fear. Abusers always rule with a reign of terror. They enforce fear because that is them. Like, that is who they are. At the core of their being, fear is in them. So they give you what they have. And the best way to rule is fear. Create fear and you're going to get something, because people do not want to deal with the fear. These people have a fearful spirit. They reign with a fearful spirit. God this side says, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And on top of that, perfect love casts out all fear. If the psychological abuser claims to be of God, yet they have fear as their domain, and God, who is love, casts out all fear, the abuser is fooling the church. The abuser is being manipulative. Church needs to wake up to this. Fear and love cannot habitate. Abuse wraps you the garment of shame. You're constantly blaming yourself. You're second guessing yourself. You think there's something wrong with you. You think your ancestors are against you. This is why you'll also come in with, I think my family has bewitched me. Everything is wrong about me. I'm not good. I'm not this. God has clothed you with the garment of righteousness. Christ gave you that garment of righteousness. Remove the garment of shame. God is not going to give you that garment of shame in a marriage or a relationship or a family or a business venture. He is not going to wrap you in the garment of shame and tell you that this is your portion. Christ gave you a garment of righteousness. A righteousness gown has no shame in it. It takes away the shame and gives you a righteous covering. Abuse affects your self-worth, your self-esteem, your identity. You lose track of who you are. You think you are at fault. You don't know your right standing with God because you have been so drenched up in trying to please this person whom you have been told is your husband or your wife. So you must submit for the wives, or the husbands, you must lay down your life. You have laid down your life over and over, and the woman is walking over it, and you don't know what more to do. This is why you also start personalizing it, that you are the one to be blamed. You're not to be blamed. Where negativity is from the other person, it is just a projection. Don't personalize it. You didn't create that negativity. You can't cure it. You can't fix it. Walk away. Another thing is that you develop a skewed perception of love and abuse. You think that they should habitate. You start thinking, if the person doesn't abuse me, they don't love me. No, that is how the devil has managed to mingle his way into the body of Christ. We think we need to be loving abusers because God says love your enemies. Loving your enemies doesn't mean you should sleep with them. It doesn't mean you should bring them in your circles. Remember, bad company corrupts good morals. God is just telling you, do not act the way they are acting. If they are abusing you, don't abuse them. He does not tell you go and live with them. This is why we get it skewed. We think we need to bring them close to us. Don't bring abusers close to you. They change they alter your thinking. You start thinking like them. Because the devil, for him, he's relentless. He will come after you. You think you're relentless in seeking the souls for Christ. The devil is relentless in getting you into his kingdom. If he can't have you in his kingdom, at least he'll take you out of this earth early, so that you don't have to cause more mayhem for him on earth here. One will be constantly apologizing. You're apologizing for everything wrong or right. You're apologizing for the rain falling. You're apologizing for the food not being ready by midday. It's 1. It's an hour. As in rest. You're constantly apologizing. Someone easily breaks down when there's a disagreement, and you're thinking, she's so sensitive, I can't hold her. The thing is that it's a trigger. It's triggering memories of abuse. You lose your creativity because of everything. The constant stress, lack of memory, brain fog. You develop suicidal ideation, and sometimes you actually you attempt suicide. And some people have actually died to suicide because of it. Young people, you're watching this, listen. Abuse escalates. Someone just says you're stupid. It sounds simple. It sounds, okay, he was having a hard day or he was annoyed. Abuse escalates. Those are red flags. You need to recognize that you're experiencing abuse. You've become a statistic in terms of domestic violence. You need to recognize that the person you once loved, the person you thought you knew, was not the person they presented themselves to be. So in other words, you got fooled into believing someone who was not who they presented themselves to be. You got played, in other words. You need to forget about people outside societal norms of God hates divorce, what will people think. No one is undergoing the abuse you're going. And tomorrow when you have a mental breakdown, effects of this abuse, also having a mental breakdown. When you have a mental breakdown, people first come and say sorry. After that, they disappear. I have seen this with some friends. No one is providing for them medical expenses, and the drugs are not these over-the-counter drugs you go for a few thousands. You part. You really dig in your pocket. Consultation has its own costs. And imagine you're already having a mental breakdown. Who is going to employ you? So the stigma also involved. People get out of these abusive situations. The people who are telling you to fight for them are not going to fend for you. And even if they fended for you 1, 2, 3 months, even if it was a year, the next couple of years, are they going to continue doing so? If they happen to die early, have they included you in their will that someone will take care of you? How many people are they going to stand with? We're having a mass display of domestic violence. It's overwhelming. We need to get to the root of it. Curb the root, and you're going to avoid all these unnecessary expenses. I encourage you who is going through this abuse, seek help from people who understand narcissistic abuse or domestic violence. Start planning your way out of it. Set aside money. Talk to friends. Seek help. But the thing is that make sure you need to get out of that abusive environment. You must remember that the very environment that made you sick cannot give you a cure. When Adam ate of the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he did not go back to eat from it again to be healed. God sent the cherubims to protect the tree of life, lest they ate from it, and not that they would just be healed, but sin would now live forever, which he had to prevent. You cannot heal in the very environment that has made you sick. Get out of it. You'll go pray, come back, but you're still in that environment. You cannot cast out the devil you're sleeping with every night. Psalms chapter 9 verse 9 says, "The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed and a stronghold in times of trouble." Having a difficult time, run to the Lord. Seek his face. The Bible tells us Jesus Christ came for the oppressed. The church is telling us to live with the oppressors. Read the Bible for yourself, people out there. Psychological abuse takes a mental toll on anyone. Mentally crippled people cannot worship God. You're living in a state of survival. Living in a state of survival means you're living in a state of fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but that of love, power, and a sound mind. You are living in the devil's camp, in other words. The very first step is recognizing you're in an abusive situation. Secondly, get yourself out of there. Third, seek therapy from a certified trauma-based counselor or therapist. Thank you for watching. Blessings.